Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I just did a not so fun video where I said that the Arsenal men's team does not look like a team that is going to win the Premier League right now, and that was not a very fun video for me to make, so I want to do something a bit more positive now and talk about the Arsenal women under Renee Slegers. Again, I'm doing this right now mainly because I want to do something positive. However, I think this was a video that I was going to make anyways, sooner or later, because I think there's a fairly interesting discourse around Slegers and whether or not she should stay as our manager long term. To set up some context, she took over, I believe, 4 games into the WSL season after a very poor start under Jonas Eidevall. She was his assistant since 2023. She's previously managed in Sweden, but is still relatively unproven in the managerial game. But it was clearly not working under Eidevall anymore. After the loss to Chelsea, we had taken just 4 points from our first 4 out of 12 points from our first 4 games. And that wasn't good enough for a team of Arsenal standing in the women's game. And there was this frustration with Eidevall in that teams very consistently were able to stop us from scoring, especially in lower standings. Eidevall actually did pretty well in games against the very best clubs. Games like the 4-1 win against Chelsea spring to mind that were really fun. And that was Eidevall at his best in such games where he has to rise to the occasion. And yet, against teams of lower standing, he was consistently struggling to put together a game plan that would see Arsenal break down a low block. And because of that, there were a lot of very frustrating draws that kind of hurt any chance of ever getting the title. Like last season, we took 9 out of 12 points against Chelsea and Man City and still finished third because we kept getting frustrating draws and losses against teams that we shouldn't have been losing or drawing to, especially in the WSL where teams very rarely at the top drop points. I believe that was the first time ever that the winning team had lost more than 2 games. So you really don't have that much of a margin of error in the WSL. And so when you're frequently drawing or losing games against teams in the lower half of the table, it becomes an issue, which is why Eidevall went. I just went on a massive tangent about Eidevall, but 4 games into the season, we lost to Chelsea. That was about it for Eidevall. And Renee Slegers comes in, who's his assistant. And I assumed it would be more or less the same just because it's someone under Eidevall in the coaching staff, so it's not like a radically new change of pace. However, rather than stale and similar to what we saw under Eidevall, Arsenal under Slegers look completely different. They look like a new team with a fresh start, and this has been a really fun period to watch Arsenal in. And I think the first time I really started to appreciate the change we've had under Slegers was the North London Derby win, because I was actually in the away section in the 2023-24 season against Tottenham when we lost 1-0. And it was a game where we had most of the possession, a ton of shots, a ton of corners, and we, for whatever reason, just couldn't figure out a way to score. And it was a disappointing game. Losing the North London Derby is never fun. And the game against Tottenham at home was fairly similar, except that time we did get 1 goal and managed to win. But it was an aggregate score of 1-1 in the 2 games we played against Tottenham. Obviously, not an actual aggregate in the league, but across those 2 games, we conceded 1 and scored 1. And having been in the away end, especially against Tottenham, that was just a really disappointing game and not a fun memory. So to see Arsenal confidently dismantle Tottenham for a 3-0 win this season away from home was really refreshing, really nice to see. And it made me really happy just to see Arsenal look like a strong attacking unit. And it's been a similar story with the defense. I believe it's like 4 or 5 games in a row now with a clean sheet. And we're scoring more, we're conceding less. I just watched us beat Bayern in the Champions League to get the top spot in the group. And that's been a really nice change of pace. I can't emphasize enough how enjoyable it's been to suddenly to watch Arsenal since Slegers has taken over as the interim head coach. That being said, um, it's not uncommon for teams to go on a good run of form when they get a new manager. Interestingly, I read in the program, or I don't know if it was a program or it might have been just an interview with Leah Williamson. Um, she said that having no, after Idaval was sacked, it forced players to be a bit more accountable for their own performances. And she said that that has helped them out a lot. And that does kind of sound like a similar thing of uh, when a manager gets sacked, uh, players have to be a bit more accountable, and that tends to bring an uptick in form, if only for a little bit of time. Um, I was weary of not jumping on the train too much because of that. I remember Man United under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, their men's team had a few good results under Ollie, and they got him long term, and it ended up failing miserably. So I didn't want to jump on the hype train too early because I've seen situations like that play out before. However, Slegers has been in charge for a few months now, and new manager bounces don't tend to last that long, which makes me think that it's not just some new thing. Like, this is an actual marked improvement over a consistent period of time. The other thing I want to bring up is an interesting article I read from The Guardian talking about this that pointed out rightly that right now the Arsenal women's job is probably one of the most attractive in women's football for the fact that there's a lot more attention. You're playing consistently in front of crowds of 20 to 30,000. They got, I believe, by quite some margin, the highest average attendance of any team in Europe right now. And you could see with the Jonas out message in the tunnel outside Emirates, there is an increased scrutiny, but also a lot more attention. So Arsenal is in quite an enviable position, and that they probably can afford to be a bit picky in who they want to get as manager, and they can probably go for a bigger name if they want to. So Slegers, again, is fairly unproven so far in the managerial game. And that's why I think that it's still maybe smart to exercise caution, at least till the end of the season, because we can do better if necessary. But that being said, we've looked really good under Slegers and gotten results that I didn't think we could get under the reign of Jonas. And seeing us play confident attacking football against lower teams on the table and consistently getting 2 or 3 goals to win the game has been a fairly refreshing thing to see. And then going ahead and beating Bayern is like a win against a really strong opponent. So I think that the smart thing to do for Arsenal would be to keep Slegers as an interim head coach until the end of the season and see how it goes from there. However, if the results keep coming like they have, I think that if we give her a whole season and we are still consistently playing like we are right now, I think she will have done enough to have proven that she deserves to be the head manager, and we can remove the interim from her name and just give her a contract long term. So I guess what I'm saying is I still would like to see Arsenal exercise a bit of caution. However, I'm really liking what I'm seeing of Arsenal under Slegers, and should this continue, it would be nice to see her take over as head coach.